Before I start, I'll go ahead and clarify that I will be reading off of a script for the sake of hitting all the points I need to. This is going to be a response to the recent allegations made against me by my ex-partner. Because it is an incredibly serious accusation, I'm going to try my best to treat this with maturity and respect. I'll also say now that while this is for anyone to watch, I'm going to speak as if I'm talking directly to my ex because I feel that is the best way I can express what I need to. And if they're listening right now, that's all the more better. After reading into this Twitter thread, I believe that these posts are coming from a place of genuine hurt and suffering rather than any malicious intent. So I'm going to respond under the stance that they are giving their honest truth. However, there are things in this which I believe are so far from the truth that I really have no other choice than to critique its validity and raise a little suspicion. I'm going to preface this by saying that there are things that they mention that I either remember very hazily or don't remember at all. Considering it's been 2 years since this has happened, and forgetting things and pushing them away is how I've always coped with trauma. There's a good amount I do remember and a good amount I don't. So a lot of it will be my word against theirs, especially at the beginning, but thankfully I have about 100 screenshots and videos to support my overall side of things. So stick through and I'll try to touch on everything which I can recall. That being said, if there's anything incorrect that I say and there's proof to back it up, please show me and I will be happy to apologize. I will take accountability. Again, these are recounts of events that took place 2 years ago. This goes without saying, but anyone watching is inclined to whatever they want to believe, and if you still support their side at the end of this, that is fine by me. I know the type of person I am inside. I know what I did and didn't do. The last thing I want to mention is that a pattern with this thread is that a lot of these are not entire mistruths, but rather heavily skewed and exaggerated truths. And if I try to go down through each and every bit and say, it didn't go like this, it wasn't like that, it wasn't as bad as that, I'm aware it'll just end up sounding like I'm downplaying their side of the situation, which I'll say now is not what I'm trying to do. Let's begin. If you won't read all of it, just don't fucking read it. This isn't some shitty crazy ex calling over regretted sex shit. This isn't a stupid revenge post. This isn't to start drama or make you hate him. What happened actually traumatized me, and I deserve to be heard. Especially after the bullshit I went through, especially after everyone looking at me like I'm the piece of shit asshole. This is for me and my younger self who would have never spoken up. I had just turned 15 years old and he was 16 at the time. We had been dating for 3 or 4 months, I think. At this point, we were both very awkward, especially me. And at this point, we never really did anything sexual. We would make out and things would get heated, but nothing further ever happened. And that's what he had a problem with. He was dropping me off at my house after another day of not doing anything, and he was genuinely upset. I asked why, and he said he was upset because we had been making out but not going further. Basically, he was pressed that I didn't suck his dick. I thought he was kidding, but I soon found out afterwards he wasn't joking at all. He went on and on about how his brother Matthew and Bestie are going to be so disappointed, and how he was disappointed himself because I didn't do anything. He said he had been waiting and waiting for me to do it too. It was something like, I really thought you were going to do it today, but you didn't. And at this point in time, he was also talking about sex a lot, specifically getting head from me. It was happening for weeks and wouldn't let it go. I was so uncomfortable, but I didn't know, nor could I defend myself or stand my ground. I was literally a kid who desperately needed validation and was a people pleaser, so the next time I saw him, I did what he wanted. He asked me afterwards, what made you finally do it today? And I just shrugged and sat in silence. In my head, I was like, because you were seriously mad about it last week. Do you not remember? How could you not remember saying that to me? He knew how much I hated myself and how much I cared about making other people happy, no matter the cost, and took advantage of that. It was from then on that I knew I'd had to give him sex in exchange way less than the bare minimum, and just to make him satisfied and happy. From what I recall, when I brought up my brother and best friend, I expressed that I was going to have to tell him that we didn't do anything. I said that because they'll persistently ask me, and it felt pressuring and annoying on my end. It was nothing more than something I decided to share and felt comfortable enough sharing with you. It was not to guilt you into doing it. I was willing to wait as long as you needed, and if you felt I pressured you, I apologize for that. It can absolutely be seen that way. Something I don't understand, however, is how you say I went on and on about it when I don't believe I ever mentioned it to that extent. It was 3 or 4 months in, and yes, I was a horny teenager in my first relationship. But to say that I had a problem with the lack of action isn't true. In fact, I believe I was patient with you, and that our sex life progressed mutually and consensually. At least that is what I was led to believe, which I'll get into later. Yes, I'm sure a lack of action did suck for me at the time, and I did express that. But again, it was something to get off my chest, not to guilt you into doing it. I felt comfortable in the idea that it wouldn't get twisted the wrong way. Saying I said I was waiting and waiting, and that I said something like, I thought you were gonna do it today, but you didn't, to me feels like a huge misrepresentation of some things I expressed to you at that time. I may not remember exactly what I said, but I know the person I was at that time, and it was not that. And your use of crying emojis and repeats make me out to have been whiny and impatient when I wasn't. So you mentioned how at this point I was talking about sex a lot. I assume what you're talking about here is, And for those who don't know, are sex-related discussions which we frequently had, which usually occurred after having tried things in bed and even before. Yes, I talked about it, and yes, it was often, but you say it as if you did not actively participate in it as well. We talked about sex a lot. I may have been usually the one to bring it up first, but I never got the impression that you had any issue with it. And if you did, I'm sorry. I wish we could have communicated that together. And when you emphasize that it was for weeks, yes, it was on average weekly. But the way you put it alludes to the idea that it was a constant, harassing way, which it wasn't. Maybe the conversations would roll on to the next day since they took place at night, but that was the extent of it. You say that I wouldn't let it go, as if the conversations were not completely mutual, because at least in my eyes, they were. Assuming this is your truth, I just wish I had known. I had known that you were uncomfortable, or even had a worry that you were uncomfortable. I would have stopped and made sure. But again, that was not the tone that I was given through all this. In fact, this is the tone that I got. Just to warn everyone, these are extremely cringy and probably hard to read, but I gotta do what I gotta do. This was an early discussion before we began having sex on November 7th, 2018. Just a heads up to everyone, the dates of these screenshots are closer to each other because this was a point where we would frequently skip school and hang out. For context, we weren't having sex, but we had started becoming more sexual with each other. I say that I do not want to make you uncomfortable. You reassure me and tell me that you were at first, but it was just you. I then tell you I will also slow down with the rate I am doing things for your sake, and you say it's up to me and that things that you previously said turned you on a little bit actually turned you on a lot. And then make sure again, if it's really okay for it to be up to me, because I believe you should have a say in this. You should have a voice. And then when I said that I assumed you had zero sex drive, you say it's definitely not zero, and as long as we are on the same page and pace, you are good, and you believe that we are on the same pace. This is another early discussion on November 10th, 2018, where we were talking about either your moaning or your heavy breathing. Based on your active participation and engaging tone, it never seemed to me like you were uncomfortable. And if you were, I am sorry. But again, that is not the impression that I got. I even reassure you that you don't have to ask a question I had asked. I did not want to force you. I did not want to make you uncomfortable. Here's a discussion from November 15th, 2018, where it starts off with you talking about enjoying things. And I ask you if there's anything you wouldn't like that I was either doing or may do. You tell me that I have nothing to worry about at all. Later in the conversation, I ask if being topless was an issue, and you say it wasn't, and that you pushed the insecurity to the back of your mind. November 16th, 2018. More conversations of you actively engaging and never coming off like there was any issue at this time. I hate to show things that are so revealing, but I have to do what I have to do. Another screenshot from November 21st, 2018. And it goes on and on. Anyone watching can pause and read through these. Yes, they are embarrassing, but you could see that things were mutual and that I was communicative. These were constructive and compassionate conversations where I repeatedly asked you if something is okay, if there's anything you don't like. I even explicitly expressed my concern for your comfortability. One of the main goals of these conversations were to keep things healthy on both sides so I don't fuck up on anything, because it was my first relationship and I had never done anything sexual before, and I knew it was the same for you. I gave you ample opportunity to defend yourself. And when we were in the act, I would stop at any moment I thought you were hurt or uncomfortable. If you felt a sharp pain and made a physical reaction, I would stop. And if you told me you wanted to stop, I would stop. I would even ask if it was okay for me to continue before we even started doing things. So I don't understand how you can think this of me. And you say that you got in exchange way less than the bare minimum. This whole time, I was under the impression that I was doing an equal part for you and that you were enjoying things as much as me. Then after that, he got obsessed with going down on me. He could tell I got extremely uncomfortable with that, but never fucking stopped. I told him so many times, I don't know man, I'm scared and I'm just not ready. Like he gave a shit. He would often pretend that he did. But again, I was severely mentally ill and just complied and let it happen. I wanted him to stop pestering me so bad about it, and I thought if I got it over with, he'd finally leave me alone. Head game was trash too, but that's another thing. You say that you never really wanted it and that you got extremely uncomfortable to a point where I could tell, but again, none of this was the impression that I was given. And you say you told me so many times that you weren't ready, but I remember a few times you expressed that at the very beginning and I was understanding of it. I was patient. However, when we mutually began to start doing things, mutual at least to my understanding, I remember this. November 7th, 2018, this is a conversation I've already shown, but they still show my point that we went at a good, shared pace and that everything was fine. December 8th, 2018. This was before I started performing oral sex on you, but I believe we were talking about the idea of going further sexually. We let each other know that we are free to start doing more. I show my concern and explain that I worry you're only down because of your period, and you reassure me that that's not the case. I continue to be an annoying little wimp, and you tell me that you are way more down than I think, and even tell me to take some risks. The next day, December 9th, 2018, I send you a risky post that says this while we are exchanging them on Instagram. When you bring it up in text, and I start getting anxious about what you thought of it, you tell me to relax and that you just didn't think it was like that, and you didn't expect it. I ask if that's bad, and you say, no, how would it be bad? You re-emphasize that I'm overthinking it and tell me that you thought I didn't want to do it because some guys aren't into it. Skip ahead past a distasteful joke I make using a slur. I apologize. More on that later. I say, I thought you didn't want to do it because you made it clear to me to not go too low on you after a recent time I almost got too low but then stopped. So I thought you didn't have an interest. You then tell me that you just weren't prepared at that time and you also didn't want to force me because you didn't think I was down. You then explicitly say, but that doesn't mean that you aren't with it and that you don't care about receiving, but only because you don't want to make me feel pressured. But that it doesn't mean that you're not down and it doesn't mean you don't care at all. For months after that, it would happen over and over again. I never really wanted it, but again, I had no self-respect at all. I was just letting him do what he wanted and hardly saying no, so he'd leave me alone and because it was a form of self-harm. I hated myself so much at the time. And he would ask from time to time, is this okay? But it felt like I couldn't say no. It was like he was asking only because he knew he should, not because he cared about consent. Like he asked just so he could say, but I asked you if it was fine. And when I did say no, the small off chance that I did, I always felt like complete shit because of everything that he had said leading up to that point. My own trauma. And because he was always fucking bringing it up. Pestering me, almost begging. Out of our entire relationship, I only genuinely and enthusiastically wanted it like 2 times. 2. And to put things into further perspective, we were both hypersexual, which is a trauma response. And we dated for over a year. Only 2 times. I asked you if things were okay because I cared. Because yes, I knew you had a low self-esteem and I wanted to be delicate with that. Whenever you'd reject sex, I may have at most expressed slight disappointment, but I never tried to make you feel like it was wrong of you to do so. I valued expressing ourselves fully and honestly in our relationship, whether it was positive or negative. And that was something that I told you. And the small off chance? To me, it was a little more than a small off chance. I remember it being a fair amount of times, whether it was you not wanting to do it or me. If you believe that I was pestering you, begging you, which after reading these is hard to believe, I just wish I had known. Wish that at least something could have been communicated to me this entire time. And when you say that you only genuinely wanted it about 2 times, I want to believe that as well. But these screenshots tell me another story. Trigger warning, this part is more explicit. During this time, as well as just overall, he would always fill me up and touch me without my consent too. He'd always just pull me to him and lift up my shirt just to fill my chest for however long he wanted, and when he was done, he'd act like nothing happened, like nothing was wrong. I felt like all he saw was my body, my chest, and as soon as he was done, he threw me off to the side. I can't talk about the other things that he would do that was like that, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. And I remember bringing it up once after it happened. It was the only time I did, and I was extremely passive about it. All he could say was, oh, we never talked about it. I find this part a little strange to put in. I can't tell if you were talking about us laying in bed, because if you are, is this not normal relationship behavior, especially this far in, and especially after all the green lights I was given to feel comfortable enough to do this type of thing without worry? I acted like nothing was wrong because I didn't think there was anything wrong of it. And I didn't think you thought there was anything wrong of it. But since you did, I just wish I had known. And you said that you told me very passively. But the thing is, I don't remember that. If you did tell me that, I am genuinely sorry for it. I can only imagine that it either didn't get across to me or something of that sort, because if you didn't like it, I would have stopped. The closest thing to this that I do remember is you telling me that you wanted me to switch up the places I do touch while laying in bed, because I was being exclusive to one place at that time, and I did as you requested. He would also try to sext all the time, or at least too often, and whenever I wouldn't go along with it, he would get so pissy and be in his bag about it. I wanted you to say all of this, but you wouldn't. I remember sexting about 3 times and having 2 sexually motivated phone calls throughout our relationship, give or take 2. Personally, I did not think it was a lot, even considering the fact that we were both very sexual, very mutually sexual. And I didn't think that you had any issue with it, so I just wish I had known. And when you didn't go along with it, I didn't react what I thought was pissy. A bit frustrated, yes. Again, because I valued full honesty in our relationship, full transparency, whether it was positive or negative. But if you felt it was to that extent, I am sorry. It was wrong of me to act that way. I should have been more mature about it. Fast forward to spring and summer of 2019. This is when we started to actually fuck and not just do oral or other stuff. It happened so often, and this is when he just stopped asking if it was okay. He barely asked if he asked at all. It was like we were both in silent agreement and I must go along with everything he does. So that's what I did. Not just with sex, but with everything. He was 18 and I was 15 or 16 at this time. I don't think I should be even explaining this, but I stopped asking because couples don't ask each other for sex each and every time. It was to my understanding that we were in silent agreement, especially after everything you reassured me of prior and encouraged me to start doing. Like taking risks, taking control, and not asking. And not to mention these Instagram pictures you sent, which further led me to believe that we were on the same page. And you say that I was 18 when you were 15 or 16, but never at any point I was with you was I 18. That is objectively false. In fact, when I turned 18, I was already talking to Maya and made it official not long after. Again, I am choosing to believe that you were not doing this under any malicious intent, but this, on top of other questionable things, start to make it very difficult. And not to mention that you said at the beginning that you were 15 when I was 16, then was later 15 or 16 when I was 18, an increase in age gap. While this would happen, he would also beg and beg for nudes. I never wanted to. See, in the beginning, I sent them without him asking because I thought it would make him stop wanting sex from me so often. But then after a while, he'd text me and want me to send shit. Again, I felt like I couldn't say no. He kept pestering me. He knows what the fuck I'm talking about too because we semi-talked about it. I lied about it in the end. I don't want to get into it, but I pretended that I wanted to because I didn't want to disappoint him or make him feel bad for some fucking reason. Same shit I said from earlier. I did not beg and beg for nudes. We had discussed how we felt about nudes at the beginning, and I told you that I was open to it, but personally, I did not care for them, that the poses and angles were unappealing to me, and you still sent them. And you wanted explicit pictures and videos of me, so I sent some back. It was mutual, at least to my understanding. I do not feel I pestered you about it. And in regards to this statement, I believe I do know what you're talking about. And if I'm correct, it was a time I was horny and asked for a nude. And when you sent one, I asked for another, and I believe I did it a third time, maybe even a fourth time. I remember afterwards you telling me that it made you uncomfortable, especially being insecure about your body. But I remember being understanding of it and even apologetic. And you lied and pretended that it was okay. That is not on me. He had the nerve to say whenever we had sex, it was for you, not for me. Me too. The difference is though, I never made him feel like he couldn't say no. I never got genuinely upset when he didn't want to do anything. In fact, I felt relieved. I wanted to crawl out of my skin the entire time. He felt that way because of his own personal guilt, not because I manipulated or used him, because I fucking didn't. I told him over and over that we didn't have to, mainly because I was trying to hint at the fact that I didn't fucking want to, and trying to avoid having to deal with this again and again, like it wasn't probably more than twice every week. You say that you told me over and over again that we didn't have to, because you were trying to hint at not wanting to. But how is that supposed to get across to me, given everything? And he manipulated me without even consciously doing it. As soon as he knew that I trusted him more than anyone else, he took advantage of that. I was constantly being gaslit by him, and he knew I pretty much idolized his opinion of me. And he would do all of these things on top of all the sexual things I wasn't down with. And whenever I'd react and explode, he would make it seem like I'm just batshit crazy. It's called reactive abuse. You can look into it. But being with him felt like I was losing my fucking mind, because I was. At the time, I wanted to kill myself, and I thought it was because of my own bullshit, but it was because I wanted to get out of it so bad, but didn't have the heart to say that I wanted to be done. And to be honest, anyone would have felt that way if they dealt with what I had to deal with. I wanted to be done with him so bad, I thought that killing myself was the only way out of it. So I gaslit you and manipulated you without even consciously doing it. I can only assume at this part you're referring to the times we were in a confrontation or disagreement over events that happened in the past. And I ended up recounting things incorrectly. Not only did I recount them incorrectly, but I did so with confidence, stubborn confidence. I was defensive about it. I had assurance that I was right only to figure out that I wasn't. And there were also times where I stood by my beliefs and never swayed from them, leading to unresolved situations where you and I had two different versions of the same event and we were both each adamantly confident in our individual sides. But I hope you know that it was not deliberate, that there was no ill intent behind it. It wasn't to make you feel crazy. It was nothing more than differences in genuine beliefs. Moving on, you say I did all these other things on top of sexual things that you weren't down with. And when you finally exploded, I made you out to be batshit crazy. I do not feel I made you out to be batshit crazy. If you felt that way, that is not what I was trying to do. That was not the person I was. If I felt you were being truly irrational, yes, I would express that. But again, trying to make you out as crazy is not who I was. And I can only assume that these outbursts must have been in person because I don't have any videos or screenshots of them. The only ones I have are outbursts of buildups where you are the one to make yourself out to be crazy, saying that the things you thought and felt were dumb, that it was just your fault and nobody else's, that you were just being sensitive, and I was the one to reassure you and validate you. January 28th, 2019, here you explain to me how when you don't express how you feel, you become a bomb. And then you say that there are things from months ago that still bother you, which you say yourself is dumb. I say that you should express those things and you say no. You go on to explain how you hate being this way, then tell me that you're going to express how you currently feel. Within this list of things you mentioned, you say that you feel like I don't care, so an issue involving me, and then proceed to blame it on yourself. I let you continue. You go on. After you finish, I go on to tell you all this. I spoke with nothing but compassion, even for the irrational things you told me. I never said you were just being irrational, just being sensitive, that you were crazy. And here is one of the several reassurance posts which I would give you. And just to add, if it helps my case, here's me on several occasions apologizing for either wrongdoings or things I worried were wrongdoings, showing I cared about my actions around you. I was considerate. And here's a conversation where I try to get you to open up about any negative feelings that you have towards me, and you refuse to go into detail about them. And in this same conversation, I try to make you feel better about yourself. You said that being in this relationship, being with me, made you want to leave and even made you want to kill yourself. And if you did, I hate that you did. I wish there was something I could have done. But again, I had no idea because I was led to believe that things were okay, that you didn't want things to be done, that I was a light in your tunnel, a source of happiness to you, irreplaceable, the best thing you could have asked for, that you love me so much. And these aren't just from the beginning either. These are throughout our relationship. And as for the situation regarding my mental health at the time, he always asked about it. He always asked about my depression and my thoughts, and I simply answer and tell him. I never said, if you do this, I'm going to kill myself. He wanted to know. I was literally answering the questions he asked. That's all. What else was I supposed to do? I was brainwashed and didn't know any better. But he did. He knew better and still chose to make those decisions and choices. I refused to carry that burden any longer. It wasn't my fault, and I refused to believe it anymore. I'm sick of blaming myself for shit he did, which wasn't an uncommon theme during that time. I'm tired of feeling guilty. It's not my guilt, it's his. It was never about me being obsessive and crazy. It was never about my boyfriend being stolen. Whoever started passing that bullshit around. It was about the fact that I did all this just for everyone to blame me, shun me, discard me, hate me, think that I'm insane. It's bull fucking shit. You're right. I did ask about it all the time because I wanted to be updated on how my partner was feeling mentally. It's because no matter what you think, believe it or not, I cared for you and I cared for you a lot. I loved you. If you blamed yourself for the things that I did, I'm sorry you did. But again, that is not on me. And it sucks that you had to deal with that aftermath. If this is really some sort of revenge plot or twisted act of self-convinced justice, I get why you would be doing this. The best I could say here is that I hope you know I was not the one to spread those rumors. I was there for him every single fucking time he needed me to be. He drained the life out of me. I was a shell of a person by the time it was over, and to have everyone look at me like I was the piece of shit, I was mad. Why wouldn't I be? For way too fucking long, I was there by his side. I did everything I fucking did to make this guy happy, including giving sex whenever he wanted, regardless of if I wanted to. I put up with racism and transphobia and homophobia. I put up with the mommy and abandonment issues. I had to buy this bitch condoms because he was too pussy to do it himself. I walked all the way to the store in the pouring fucking rain. Condoms that I didn't even want to use. I walked 2 miles for him. The fact that I glossed over him literally sexualizing children. I let go of myself for him just to have people think that I'm the one that's insane. Like I'm not a victim. Like he doesn't have so many fucking issues. Like mother, like fucking son. Like I'm not the one that treated him with so much love and kindness that he didn't deserve. I was still so kind after everything that had happened. This one gets a little upsetting because you made this all about how much you did for me, like I did absolutely nothing in return. We both drained the life out of each other. We were both fucked in the end. We were by each other's side. You say that you put up with racism, transphobia, and homophobia, and admittedly, there were absolutely things I said and views that I had which were distasteful, and I have grown since then. But given the recent trend of how you have misinterpreted my words, I can't help but wonder if you're referring to the jokes that I made, the jokes that I often made, which didn't have any actual underlying biases underneath them. Jokes that you didn't seem to have a problem with at the time and even engaged in yourself. And if you are talking about my actual views, if they were extreme enough to you to the point where you had to put up with it, I wish we could have communicated that at the time. You put up with my mommy and abandonment issues, and I put up with your severe depression and daddy issues. Actually, I didn't put up with it. I handled it with care, I let you openly speak about it, and I did the best I could to help. The claim that I sexualized children, if I'm not mistaken, was talked about in a call you had with my current girlfriend, which I'll talk about again later. And you told her that you had suspicions of me being a because I wanted to see a picture of you with a teddy bear, and because of some of the things I would say to you during sex that I'm assuming either made you uncomfortable or made you think twice about it later. The teddy bear thing I don't even need to explain myself for, and I can only imagine the sexual things I said being domineering things which were misinterpreted. Domineering things which I thought you were okay with given what you had told me you were into. If I had made you uncomfortable, I am sorry. I wish I could have known. That is why we had these sex-related conversations. After we broke up, he had the nerve to call me and say that he missed me. He had the audacity to say that I blocked him out and left him all alone, that I seemed like I don't give a fuck about anything he had to say. The fact that I had to tell this boy, you broke up with me, you literally have a girl, leave me alone, and you're right, I don't fucking care about what you have to say. It's hilarious that nobody knows that part. How nobody knows that he was clinging to me for a while after we broke up, even while him and his current girl were starting to talk. You are all so stupid, everyone on his side I mean. And by the way, I'm not doing this for people to be on my side, I literally don't care. And no one knows the fucking scale of it, and I can't even fully describe it, even if I try harder to. He would tell me how I needed to dress and act, what he liked and what he didn't approve of. I had to become who he wanted me to be, and not to mention how he led me on instead of being honest with me. That's shitty as fuck, especially because he knew I would have done literally anything for him and put up with it. It was awful. It was like he kept me in his back pocket, using me for his own personal gain whenever he was bored or wanted sex. The one single time I didn't put up with this shit, the one time I stuck up for myself to him, and everyone's like, oh my god, what happened to them? They used to be so nice. Go fuck yourself. If this happened to any of you, you think the same and feel the same fucking way. When we broke up, we had agreed to remain best friends, something we had already considered each other on top of romantic partners while we were together. So I treated you how I would have treated a best friend. When I said I missed you, I meant it platonically. And when you found out that I got with Maya, you made it out to sound like I was texting you because I still had feelings for you. I didn't. I was over you. On top of still wanting to be your best friend, I was trying to understand how you were feeling in regards to me getting with Maya, as someone who cared about you, as a person, as a friend. And you told me that you didn't owe me anything and to leave you alone, so I did. You say I told you how to dress and act, but I absolutely never did that. This one hits especially hard because I valued freedom to express yourself. I prided myself in letting you act and dress freely. You would ask me how I felt about the clothes you were wearing at the time, and I would give you my honest answer, whether it was positive or negative. But that was it. This is the closest I can think of telling you what to wear, and it was a joke. I never tried to control anything you wore, and I never told you how to act. I was accepting of you entirely and aimed at trying to make you comfortable in your own skin. I realized 2 years after it happened that I was assaulted. No, I don't care if anyone thinks I'm lying or blowing things out of proportion. I know what the fuck happened. I don't care what any of his shitty fucking friends have to say. I don't care at all. I deserve to be heard, and I owe it to myself. Y'all deserve to know who the fuck this guy is. Y'all deserve to know the truth too, you know. This took a lot of fucking courage to do, putting my trauma out in the open like this. And for those who think I'm making this all up because I'm still upset for some silly reason, why would I go this far to make it up? That doesn't make any sense, but you do you. As I said, I don't give a fuck. If you can read all that and still look at me like I'm the villain, that's not my problem. I don't care. I wouldn't want you supporting me anyways, because that's not the goal. As I said, I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm not doing this so you can go give him bullshit now. I'm doing this for me. So go ahead and think what you want. Call me insane. Call me bat shit fucking crazy. I don't care anymore. God, that felt like a dream to get off my chest. I needed that. Thanks for reading. And to anyone who supports me, just know that I am eternally grateful for it. This was hard to do, and it means so much to me. Thank you again. And that's all of it. I don't want to invalidate your experience, but I personally fail to see how I assaulted you. After endless encouragement, after endless reassurance to perform sexual activities with you, there's nothing else really for me to say. I just fail to see it. If you weren't consenting to anything I was doing this entire time, yet led me to believe that you were, that is not on me. Like I said repeatedly, I just wish I had known. But as much as I tried to let you speak about your issues openly and non-judgmentally and at the expense of my own well-being, you hid all of this away from me. And that is not on me, that is on you. If you told me, instead of, to put it bluntly, consistently lie, I would have helped. Never at any point did I see this side that you were secretly living. And honestly, after looking into these texts, I still fail to see it. It's so hard to fathom that you felt pestered, manipulated, thrown to the side as sexual garbage after all these things you told me. Even assuming that none of this is just deliberate lies with nothing more than malicious intent. If you were never clear to me about anything you claim was an issue at the time, spoke about how I was a great boyfriend to you, and even went as far as reassuring me repeatedly that everything was okay and I had nothing to worry about, it begs the question, who was really manipulated here? For someone who's always been about validation, you disregarded practically everything I ever did, and I am so glad that I have these screenshots. It is a miracle that these were backed up on Google Photos and weren't deleted, because otherwise I wouldn't have any ground to defend myself. Only my own claims and my friends to back me up, which isn't much. And I'm glad I have these screenshots, not only for me, but for you to see. For you to see the reality of what happened 2 years ago. Truthfully, the pattern I'm noticing here is that these were all normal, non-toxic, non-manipulative events that have been re-examined and reinterpreted under the bias that I am this heartless, manipulating, and they are spoken with clear contempt towards me. Clear, genuine contempt. Things that weren't an issue at the time, but when you looked back, came to the conclusion that there was an issue, that there was always an issue deep down, and you were brainwashed. And if you truly believe that is the truth, then so be it. But I ask you, and anyone else watching, do these conversations sound like that to you? Do these conversations sound like I am these things? Another thing I want to mention is that you had a phone conversation with my current girlfriend where you showed clear concern for her well-being and she reassured you that she was completely fine. While I am aware that two people can have two completely different experiences with the same person, and I'm sure that is the argument that you would be making now. If I am truly manipulative like you claim me to be, wouldn't the symptoms of my manipulative behavior have shown through by now after 2 years of being with my current girlfriend? Even a little bit? She had mentioned once in the call that she understood where we were coming from about the gaslighting thing because she had felt a similar way over a situation that I had gotten into with her. But she reassured you that it was a misunderstanding that was quickly resolved. So what behavior? Manipulators and abusers have patterns that almost always extend from one person to the next, and eventually true colors will leak through. The way I treat my girlfriend now is how I treated you, yet you had such a shockingly different experience in the end. A shockingly different experience, not only compared to her, but compared to the things you tell me during our relationship. It doesn't add up to me. And to anyone who refuses to believe that my relationship with my current girlfriend is completely fine, that I'm actually brainwashing her to do my sexual bidding, I invite you to come spend time with us and see for yourself. Now let me show you how easy it is to distort something and turn this right back on you. How easy it is to convince others and convince myself that you are more manipulative than meets the eye. I could say that you took advantage of my inability to remember things well and used that against me, waiting 2 years to post this and then continuing on to claim specific events happened more often than they did and went a certain way than they really did. I could say that you intentionally exaggerated things that, while aren't complete lies, are slightly true or completely skewed just to make it harder for me to defend myself. A common manipulation tactic. I could say that you decided to post this right as my channel was at a steady incline in popularity just to take me down. I could say that you lied about my age and made the age gap larger than it was to make this accusation sound all the more worse, to push the idea that I was an adult and you were a child. I could say that you used a vulnerability I opened up to you about and trusted you with against me by comparing me to my mother. Another manipulation tactic. These are all things that can be wrongfully correlated and skewed to fit a narrative. It is so easy to make an innocent person out to be something truly shitty, and I feel that is exactly what you've done to me and you don't even realize it. You connected dots that weren't there and listened to nothing other than what supported this newfound view of me, to a point where I have been belittled into nothing but a pathetic, manipulative that never gave a single shit about you. You even went as far as accusing me of a... But I am not gonna say that you did this to me deliberately, because that is not the type of person that I am, and that is not the person I knew you to be. I choose not to believe those examples I just said. I choose to believe that you're speaking without malicious intent, and this is 2 years of letting these ideas grow inside your mind with nothing but your friends to be by your side and act as yes men. Nobody on your end that knows my end of this. Nobody on your end that even bothered talking to me, like actually talking. Nobody to talk you out of these ideas. And this isn't to call you crazy. I don't think you're crazy, nor did I ever call you crazy during our time together. I cannot blame you for this because it was equally my part that you never got the closure you so desperately needed when I broke up with you. And this breakup, which I'll be talking about now, is why I think things have turned out how they have. After a mostly normal night in which we had engaged in oral sex earlier, there was an uncomfortable issue we had between us. Whether it was a confrontation or a general venting, I do not remember. I abruptly broke up with you that night, repeating that I couldn't do this anymore, and I dropped you home. I then later told you that these were my reasons for breaking up. I was exhausted. I didn't deserve you. I didn't feel right for relationships, let alone commitment in one. The reasons I gave you pointed to the idea that it was really just me and not you. But despite that, after our year-long relationship, I got with Maya over a month later. And as a result, you felt betrayed, lied to, thrown to the side like I never gave a shit. And not just from anyone, but from someone who was a source of happiness to you, a light in your tunnel, someone you could trust. I cannot imagine the pain that you felt during this time, and I wish things could have went differently for your sake. You never got any closure from me from then on, only me making excuses for myself and standing by the reasons I'd given for breaking up with you. I do not blame you for blocking me out and refusing to hear any more from me. You had every reason to. I should have known the gravity of what I was doing better. I am now going to give my side and my reasonings for what happened. This is not me justifying my actions because ultimately I did what I did and it hurt you. It hurt you a lot. I hurt you a lot. This is to give the clarity that I never gave you. Just a warning for anybody watching still, this is going to get personal. Several months into our breakup, your depression, which we dealt with together, had exhausted me to a point where I couldn't take it anymore and I wanted to leave. I tried my best throughout these remaining months to keep the relationship alive by all means because I was in denial about how I felt deep down, and I wanted us to work out. I felt guilty because I'd reassured you of all of these things previously, and I did not want to backtrack on any of it. I did not want to make you feel lied to. But this reassurance that I'd once spoke with confidence, I was now struggling to hold on to. I didn't want to admit that I was being burdened by being with you, so I convinced myself that it was just me, that it was just my own personal commitment issues, that I didn't deserve you, that I am simply just not right for relationships, and time will only continue to prove me right. But all I was doing was pushing myself away from the real cause, which was that I was suffocating. I was struggling to keep a happy face all the time and believe that everything was going to be all right. I was struggling to continue to be there for you when you needed me. The reassurance I continued to give you, I was trying to convince myself of too. But as much as I cared about you and wanted to keep things going, the relationship was dead to me and I was being dragged into my own hole. And I started to dread the idea of possibly having to do this for another year, so I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for you but the thing was, you were also in so much pain. You had told me that at around this time, you were feeling at your lowest. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I tried to think everything through, but my head was so fogged up, void of any clear image, any clear choice. I had fears of all that could happen to you had I break up with you. I knew you've had a history of suicide attempts, so I chalked up all of my feelings into one sentence, which was that I've become exhausted in our relationship. That was my compromise. That was what I felt was the most honest way of explaining my reasonings without making you feel like a huge burden to me. And I knew that you would still feel like a huge burden to me. And I know you did. You apologized to me for, in your own words, everything when I dropped you home that night. So I couldn't imagine possibly having to go into detail about how I felt. I proposed that we would still be best friends afterwards because I cared about you, and admittedly, I had worries. I thought this would be a way to keep you in touch while not having to deal with a weight on my shoulders any longer. And I thought that this would work because you and I had already considered each other best friends while we were together. I felt I treated you how I would have treated a best friend, and if you felt that I came on too strong, I'm sorry, that was not my intention. I was fully adamant on it being a platonic relationship. Now that I was out of it, having this weight lifted off my chest, this sense of responsibility for you, I was feeling a lot better, and I slowly began to realize and unrealize things about myself. I felt that I could start truly doing things for me and only me. I could start focusing on my own wants and my own happiness. A month passes, and this is when Maya came along. She started talking to me and I rolled with it. Before we got anywhere, I let her know that I wasn't sure about starting a new relationship, having just gotten out of one, and that I'd be worried for you and how you'd feel. I also mentioned that I personally didn't feel right for relationships because I was still holding on to that mindset at that point. But I made the decision to see where things would go because I decided that thinking about how you would feel about this would defeat the purpose of focusing on my own happiness, something I had promised myself to truly start focusing on. Also, although I was holding on to that mindset, holding on to it stubbornly, deep down I felt that something was off, something wasn't exactly true. Regardless, it was a selfish decision I had made for me, and it hurt you so bad and caused what is today. I believe it is at this point where your perception of me starts to change, and that was a direct result of this action, of my action. I still decided that I could at the very least be gentle about letting you know about Maya and I, so I held it off until unplanningly you came to find out yourself, and you ended up hearing different things from both of us. I held on to the idea of not feeling right for relationships and commitment for a while, to a point where I was stubborn about it. But it was being with Amaya that I started to question the validity of these things because we got along so well. Eventually, my head cleared up and I am now able to understand what I did with more clarity. I wish I could have expressed this at the start. I would have said it had I understood then. But it was only after months of healing was I fully able to grasp what had happened in my entire thought process during it. Once my head cleared up, I never told you for several reasons. For one, it had already been months and I just wanted to move on from it. Thinking about it brought up emotions that I couldn't stand, and I had a new girlfriend at that point, and I wanted to focus on my own happiness rather than feel responsible for yours. I wasn't going to put my mental energy into it any longer. Not to mention that you and I had officially cut ties at that point after attempts to speak with you, in which you told me you don't owe me anything and left it at that. Again, I am not blaming you for it. It just is what it is. None of this means I regret the decisions I made though. None of this is your guilt to carry, but neither is it mine, because I did the best that I could in the situation I was in the state of mind I was in at that point, and I stand by that. I am not sorry for what I did, but I am sorry for how it made you feel, what it did to you. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am only asking for you to try and understand. We drained the life out of each other. We were both fucked by our relationship. Just because I had gone with Maya doesn't mean the scars were healed, and it doesn't mean they were non-existent. She helped me pick the pieces back together. When I look back, I don't see what is seen in this thread. This is what I see. I see a beautiful first-time relationship muddled with depression, insecurity, extreme dependency, and a lack of communication on both our ends till the very end and after, which festered into what it's become today. You are not a victim of my hands, but a victim of this turbulent relationship which had traumatized the both of us. And people villainized both of us after sharing our own personal truths. You are a victim and I am a victim. You made mistakes and I made mistakes. The complexities of each other were shared between us for better or for worse. It was never this black and white. I was never this black and white. I am not this black and white. I am not perfect, but I am a good person. I am a very good person. And I want to believe so bad that you are too. I want to believe that this is not what I fear it to be, that it is only what I theorize it is due to. Although I can empathize with you, that does not justify what you have done to me with this accusation. Regardless of what events led you to this, you have made an incredibly serious accusation, one that can ruin people's lives and have countless times in the past. And I can take legal action against you for it. I am not saying this to scare you. I am not saying this as a threat. I'm saying to be careful with the words you choose against people. I did not sit by you through all your low points and mentally exhaust myself to a point of breaking just to get dragged and chalked down into nothing but a pathetic, manipulative that never cared. Do you have any idea how that fucks with a person? How it feels to try your hardest to be the best person you could be, the best partner you can be, just to end up being scared and terrified of every sentence you speak down to the word and tone because you don't want to come off as something that you're not. To be unable to deal with other people's issues anymore because all advice you feel like you can give is pointless and won't do them any good. I know how that feels like. I know how it's felt for nearly 2 years. Okay, moving forward. This last part is for Abby Hodges, who said that I used to kill cats for fun and blame it on my younger brother Matthew, that I was known by everyone as a weird kid that didn't have any friends because I killed cats, that I grew up in a rough neighborhood, that you grew up with me and knew me since age 12, that I got bullied, that both my parents are shitty ass people who are also crazy, that I'd go to the country club pool and be an asshole to the girls there, and that I do coke. Who the fuck do you think you are to spread dog shit lies like this? There wasn't any point in my childhood I even knew who you were, but you are so confident in my personal life and upbringing that you give it out like it's just complete fact. The first time I ever saw you was freshman year, maybe sophomore year of high school, and we hardly even talked. You say I didn't grow up in a safe neighborhood. Do you have any pictures of this unsafe neighborhood? This neighborhood that you claim I live in one conversation and then claim I don't live in another. I guess we must have just both moved places together, right? If you have any pictures, show me. I'd love to see it. Actually, don't even bother because I'm going to show you. You want to see the unsafe neighborhood that I grew up in? This is the neighborhood I grew up in. I live in one of the best neighborhoods in the area. It's literally full of retired old people. And for you to call my parents shitty ass people crazy, go fuck yourself. Do not ever say anything about my mom and dad like you know them. Like you know them more than my own fucking girlfriend, who's known them for 2 years now because you don't. My parents are incredible people, and that's the last thing anybody should call them. And killing cats? Where the fuck did you even get that from? Why is it that I have never heard anybody besides you say that, Abby? Because nobody knows me for killing fucking cats. But I guess you do, Abby. But if you actually knew me, you'd know that I was shy. You'd know I wouldn't even have had the balls to approach a woman, let alone go to a public pool and harass them. Not in my entire life have I ever stepped a single foot into that pool. I didn't even know there was a pool there for half my childhood. And if you actually knew me, you knew that despite being shy, I had friends. I had lots of friends. I have always had lots of friends. You said that I used to get bullied, that people didn't fuck with me, and you claim that I only started making friends in high school, but still not many. I already had lots of friends, and when I went to high school, I made even more. I was literally friendly with everybody around me. That was my reputation. You wouldn't know that though, would you? I mean, after all, we only spent like one class together freshman or sophomore year throughout all of high school. Matthew isn't even my younger brother. He is my older brother. Like, clearly older. But I guess you know the truth, Abby. I guess you know the deep, dark truth about me. Well, since you know so much about me, you must have proof of something, right? I mean, that's a lot of claims you made. Oh, what? Maya already asked you? And when she asked, you replied with, girl, LMFAO, I want you to show me a shred of proof of literally anything. I am waiting. Oh, and on a side note, you say that you fully believe that I'm a bad person because is also manipulative and he is my best friend, so it checks out. Then by that logic, if you knew these horrible things about me all along because you speak them with such confidence, why did you get with in the first place, knowing that he is not just a friend, but a best friend, a childhood friend of someone apparently as shitty as me. You apparently have always known I was bad, right? And especially after having been manipulated numerous times by several people. How is that not a huge red flag for you? That being said, the claim that I am all of these things just doesn't add up, and it's because you made it up. You could have left it alone and been safe there, but you decided to push it to the next level and spread blatant lies. Lies that don't even sound believable to anyone who actually knows me. What a fucking joke. Did you even try to make it sound believable? Or do you just like talking out of your ass, regardless of the inconsistencies, because you wanted to see me shoved into the dirt? You literally tried to manipulate my girlfriend into thinking what you wanted her to believe. And it makes me question, Abby, are you really for justice and truth, or are you for revenge? And if you think you're doing the world justice, helping victims by doing this, by spreading lies to push a false narrative, basically attempt to ruin the life of a person whose perspective you haven't even heard, you're not. You're doing the opposite. You're making it harder to believe victims and have people stand by their side. It's disgusting. It's truly disgusting. It's disgusting, and you're disgusting. If you don't want to look crazy, then don't say crazy shit. That's all I have to say. For anyone still watching, thank you for hearing my side. That's all.